Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. And those people on YouTube, thank you very much. I get reports that there's ever increasing number of people that are subscribing and so on. And so thank you for that. It would be wonderful to have you join us in real time whenever it's convenient. So thank you so much for that. So we're back on the Lalitavistara Sutra. We're on chapter 21. And where we left off was at the end of chapter 21.116, verse 116. And what we had just read and discussed was that Mara, the demon Mara, had been trying everything that he could do together with his family and his minions and so on to convince the Bodhisattva to give up his meditation. And he had been using the hatred, the anger, aggression he was trying to arise in the Bodhisattva through fear and war, objects of fear and war and so on, to no avail. So now we continue with Mara starting with trying to convince the Bodhisattva to rise up on by other means. So this is where we start on 21.117. So I'll read this first page because it's a short page on 21.117, and then Bernie, will you go and you will read the second page, and then Alex, are you in a position to read tonight?
Sorry, I don't have text in here.
Okay, well, it's good to have you with us. Okay, so Kunga, will you read the third page, and then the fourth page I'll read, the fifth page Bernie will read, and the sixth page is Kunga, and so on, until we get to, let me see, make sure my notes are right. Until 21.174. The end of that is where we'll stop, and then we'll have a discussion, and we'll pick it back up, okay? So the order is I'll read first, then Bernie reads, then Kunga reads. All right, so whoever winds up at the end part of dot 174, that's where we'll end for our discussion. Okay? So we begin at 117. Now Mara, the evil one, felt unhappy and full of suffering. Still, even though he was miserable and ashamed of himself, he was overpowered by pride to such an extent that he could not leave. He could not turn back and flee. Therefore he turned to his men and spoke. All of you, wait a while until we find out whether it is possible to arouse the Bodhisattva by polite persuasion. Such a jewel of a being should not be killed outright. Then Mara, the evil one, spoke to his daughters. Girls, you must now go to the seat of awakening and examine the Bodhisattva. Does he have desires or not? Is he deluded or intelligent? Is he like a blind man, or does he know the country and seek advantage? What is it, and is he weak or strong? When they heard these words, the divine maidens went to the seat of awakening, where the Bodhisattva was. They assembled in front of the Bodhisattva and began displaying the 32 ways of female trickery. What are these 32 ways? They are as follows. 1. Some of the girls partially covered their faces. 2. Some showed off their firm and voluptuous breasts. 3. Some smiled at him and flashed their teeth. 4. Some lifted their arms, waving them in the air to reveal their armpits. Some flaunted their lips, red like bimbo fruit.
6. Some looked at the Bodhisattva through half-closed eyes and then quickly closed their eyes. 7. Some showed off their half-covered breasts. 8. Some loosed their clothes to reveal their hips adorned with girdles. 9. Some wore fine transparent clothes that revealed their hips and their girdles. 10. Some made clinking sounds with their anklets. 11. Some showed their breasts adorned with strings of pearls. 12. Some showed off their half-naked thighs. 13. Some displayed jays, parrots, and minor birds sitting on their heads and shoulders. 14. Some cast sidelong glances at the Bodhisattva. 15. Some wore good clothes, yet let them hang improperly. 16. Some made the chains on their hips shake and twinkle. 17. Some mischievously moved back and forth in a flirtatious manner. 18. Some danced. 19. Some sang. 20. Some flirted and acted shy. 21. Some shook their thighs like a palm tree moved by the wind. 22. Some let out deep moans. 23. Some dressed in a transparent cloth with bells hanging down from the string at their waist and walked around giggling. 24. Some stripped off all their clothes and jewelry. 25. Some showed off all their jewelry, both the secret and the apparent. 26. Some showed their arms, which had been rubbed with perfume. 27. Some displayed their earrings anointed with perfume. 28. Some covered their face with a veil and suddenly revealed it. 29. Some laughed, played, and had fun, trying to attract each other's attention. But then they again pretended to be shy. 30. Some of them showed off their virgin bodies that had never given birth. 31. Some tried to lure the Bodhisattva with offers of love. 32. Some scattered flower petals on the Bodhisattva. Standing before the Bodhisattva, they pondered what his thoughts might be as they looked at his face. Did he look at them with senses aroused, or did he look into the distance? They looked to see if he was excited or not. The face of the Bodhisattva, however, remained as pure and stainless as the orb of the full moon when it escapes from the mouth of Rahu, or the man riding on in early dawn, or a golden pillar, or the sun rising in the early dawn, or a golden pillar, or a blooming thousand-petaled lotus, or a sacrificial fire sprinkled with oil, like the central mountain remained unmoving, like the surrounding mountains, was truly elevated. He guarded his senses well, and like the elephant, his look was that of someone with a mind well tamed.
Now the daughters of Mara, in a further attempt to rouse the Bodhisattva's desires, spoke the verses to him. Springtime is here, the best of seasons. Let us frolic, dear, while the trees are in bloom. Your body is so beautiful and attractive, it is enticing, has auspicious remarks, and is well adorned. We were born beautiful and with perfect curves. We are here to please gods and humans and grant complete satisfaction. Awakening is hard to gain, so change your mind. Quick, stand up and enjoy the prime of youth. It is for your sake that we have come here all dressed up and adorned. Come now, take a look at these divine girls so beautifully adorned. Who would not be thrilled when enjoying the passion of love? Even a decayed tree would be brought back to life. Our voices are soft and our scent is delicious. Our faces look their best with diadems, earrings, and makeup. Our faces have beautiful brows and are well anointed. Our beautiful eyes are as pure and large as lotuses. Our faces resemble the moon, the full moon. Our lips are like ripe bimbo fruit. Our teeth are white like conch shells, jasmine flowers, or snow. So, O beloved one, look at us who ardently desire pleasure. Look at our firm and voluptuous breasts, the beautiful three folds on our bellies, and our broad and beautiful hips. Lord, look at us, such beautiful maidens. Our thighs resemble the trunk of an elephant. Our arms are bedecked with abutting bracelets. Our hips are adorned with beautiful chains. Lord, look at us, your servants. With the gait of a swan, we gently approach you, soft and beautiful. We talk of amorous love, amorous love, beautifully adorned as we are. We are experts in divine pleasures.
We are well trained in singing, playing instruments, and theatrical performance. We are born with perfect bodies for the sake of pleasure. If you don't accept us now, as we crave pleasure, you will quickly become a loser in this world. What man would run away when he sees such a treasure? You will be exactly like that, ignorant of the treasure, which is love. If you remain ignorant of our amorous passion and fail to enjoy these young girls who have come of their own will. Monks, the Bodhisattva just smiled with unblinking eyes. He sat there smiling, with calm senses, physically at ease, resplendent, without attachment, free from anger, and without delusion. Like the king of mountains, he was immutable, confident, unconfused, and untroubled. Since he had totally abandoned, all by himself, all disturbing emotions, through his well-established intelligence and wisdom, he now spoke with soft and pleasant words in a tone that exceeded even the voice of Brahma. His voice was like that of a cuckoo, pleasant and sweet-sounding, as he addressed Mara's daughters with these verses. Desire results in a great deal of suffering. It is the root of suffering. For the unwise, desire ruins their concentration, magical ability, and austerities. The wise say that chasing women brings no satisfaction. I will satisfy the unskilled ones with wisdom. The thirst of someone who pursues desires increases ever more, just like one feels after drinking salty water. If I were to engage in that, there would be no benefit to me or to others, and I delight in being useful to both myself and to others. Your beauty is like water bubbles or foam. Like magical colors, it is merely mentally created. Like a play or dream, it is unstable and impermanent. It deludes the minds of childish beings. The eyes are like water bubbles. They are enclosed in a membrane, like clotted blood is enclosed in a suppurating ulcer. The belly is like one big load of urine and excrement, excreting filth. The mechanism of suffering has emerged from karma and disturbing emotions.
It is the deluded people with childish mind, not the wise ones, who mistakenly perceive the body as beautiful. This makes them spin for a long time in cyclic existence, the source of suffering. Their suffering experienced in hell is extremely painful. From the crotch, awful smells are leaked. The thighs, the calves, and the feet are joined together like a mechanical contraption. When I examine you, I see that you are like an illusion, which has deceptively emerged from causes and conditions. When seeing that the sensual enjoyments are without good qualities, and that they lead away from the noble path of wisdom, and that they are the same as poisonous plants or fires, or like angry vipers, only fools would call them happiness. Whoever becomes a slave to women through desire will stray away from discipline, from concentration, and lose common sense. Wallowing in pleasure, he will be far removed from wisdom if he discards his joy in the Dharma and delights in desire. I have neither attachment nor anger. I do not perceive anything permanent, attractive, or with a self. I do not feel dislike or joy. My mind is free like the wind in the sky. Even if the whole world filled with the likes of you, who besieged me here for eons on end, I would not feel anger, attachment, or delusion, because the mind of the victorious one is like the sky. Although the gods and goddesses have their purity and splendor, have no blood or bones, they all live in great fear, since they lack permanence and cannot endure. At that point, Mara's daughter, skilled as they were in female deception, felt even greater lust, haughtiness, and pride. They displayed love gestures, showed off their adorned bodies, and tried even further female trickery in their attempts to seduce the Bodhisattva. On this topic, it is said, the most seductive and sweet girls, Trishna, Rati, and Arati, these three graceful ones hastily arrived, sent by Mara. They danced like the shoots of young creepers on a tree, blowing in the breeze, to stir lust in the prince sitting under the tree branches.
Among all seasons, springtime is the best. At this time, men and women frolic, and darkness and dust disappear. Cuckoos, swans, and peacocks call out, and flocks of birds fill the air. This time to experience the joys of pleasure has arrived. For thousands of eons, he delighted in discipline, austerities, and hardships. He was immutable like the king of mountains, with a body like the rising sun. Like roaring thunder, his beautiful voice resounds like that of the king of peace. This person who benefits others utters only meaningful words. Desires, disputes, hostility, and strife bring the fear of death. Ignorant fools engage in them continually, yet the skilled one renounces them. This is the time when the well-gone one attains immortality. So today you will conquer Mara and become a worthy one with 10 powers. At their many magical displays, they said, you with your lotus-like face, listen to us. You will become a king, a supreme ruler, a powerful master of the earth. Flocks of beautiful women will play thousands of instruments for you. Of what use is the dress of a sage to you? Give that up and enjoy his pleasures instead. The Bodhisattva replied, I will be the master of the three realms, venerated by gods and humans. I will be a king who travels by the wheel of Dharma, endowed with 10 powers. A million seekers and those with no more need of learning will always bow to me. Because I enjoy the Dharma, I no longer seek joyful objects. The daughter said, for as long as your youth has not passed and you are in your prime, for as long as disease has not struck you and you are not old and gray-haired, for as long as you have your beauty in your youth, and we too are happy, for so long you should enjoy the pleasures of love with a smile on your face.
The Bodhisattva replied, until I attain perfect freedom and immortality, so difficult to attain, until I am rid of the suffering and bondage in the realms of gods and demigods, until old age, disease, and death show their angry faces, for so long I will train on the auspicious path that leads to the city of fearlessness. The daughters said, in the divine realm, you, like Chakra, will be surrounded by divine maidens. In the heaven free from strife, the heaven fully free from strife, and the heaven of joy, you will be praised by the best of immortals. In the realm of Mara, enthralled by amorous women, you will find the pleasures of love. Relish playing with us. It will bring great pleasure. The Bodhisattva replied, desire is ephemeral, like dew on the tip of grass, or like autumn clouds. Desire is terrifying, like the wrath of the Naga girls. Chakra, the gods in the heaven free from strife, and the gods in the heaven of joy, all fall under the sway of Mara. Desire plagues all ignoble ones, so how could anyone rejoice in that? The daughters said, look at these beautiful trees with fresh leaves and blooming flowers. They resound with the cries of pheasants, cuckoo birds, and the humming of bees. On the ground grows fresh green grass, so soft and thick. Will you, the lion of men, enjoy yourself with us young girls in a pleasure grove? The Bodhisattva replied, all these trees produce shoots and flowers according to seasons, And bees also seek out flowers because of suffering from hunger and thirst. Since everything that grows from the ground will wither under the sun, I have resolved to actualize the nectar that all victorious ones have enjoyed.
Mara's daughters insisted, "Look at us. Our faces are like the moon and like fresh lotus flowers. Our speech is soft and pleasant, and our teeth are white as snow or silver. Such beauties are rare among the gods. So how about among humans? The women that you have here are even desired by the highest of gods." The Bodhisattva replied, "I see the body as impure, filled with masses of worms. It easily breaks and perishes, and is thoroughly without pleasures. Yet I will attain the imperishable state venerated by the wise, the state that brings ultimate happiness to the animate and inanimate worlds." The daughters now put on 64 displays of amorous behavior. They rang their anklets and girdles and let the clothes slip off, struck with the arrow of desire, infatuated with smiles on their faces. They said, "Lord, do we appear so ugly to you that you don't share our love?" Knowing the faults of all samsara, the stainless one replied, "Desire is like a sword, a spear, a trident, or a razor blade smeared with honey. It is like the head of a viper or a fire pit. That much I have realized. So, since women steal one's virtues, I have abandoned their company. With all the billions of skills that induce amorous infatuation, the girls were unable to seduce the well-gone one who has the gait of a young elephant. So with shame and embarrassment, they now bowed to the feet of the sage. Giving rise to respect, joy, and love, they praised the benefactor. "Your face is like the spotless center of a lotus, or like the harvest moon. Your luster is like the flames of a sacrificial fire, or the shine of the golden mountain. May your wishes and vows, which you have made in hundreds of lives, be fulfilled. Now you are yourself have crossed, please liberate all sentient beings." They praised the one who, like the banyan tree, or like the kampaka, they circumambulated the supreme being who was immutable like a majestic mountain. Returning, they bowed their heads to their father and told him, "Father, the master of gods and humans, has no fear or anger."
With a smiling face, he looks on with eyes like lotus petals. Never does he look at others with detachment or a frown. Mount Meru may tremble, the oceans dry up, and the sun and moon fall, but never will he who sees the fault of the three existences come under the sway of amorous women. When Mara the evil one heard these words, he felt even more miserable and unhappy. Angry and disappointed, he told his daughters, "Oh my, that stupid fool, so ignorant that he doesn't see your beauty and good looks. How can it be that we are unable to get him away from the seat of awakening?" Then once again the daughters of Mara spoke to their father in verse. Although we speak to him softly and lovingly, he does not get aroused. Even though we show him the most secret of things, he does not get hostile. No matter what acts he witnesses, he remains without delusion. Although he sees the entire body, his thoughts remain profound. He clearly realizes the faults of women. He is far removed from lust and has no desire. Neither in divine abode nor here on earth is there a human or God capable of gauging his mind and actions. Father, we tried every female trick on him. With all our lust, surely his heart should have melted. Yet although he saw it all, his mind wasn't distracted even once. Like the foremost king of mountains, he was immutable. He accumulated the splendor of hundreds of virtues and qualities. For many millions of eons, he has practiced ethics and disciplined conduct. The gods and Brahma, pure beings possessing the splendor of virtue, pay homage to him and test their heads to his feet. Once he conquered Mara's army. He will surely attain sacred awakenings, just as the victorious ones did in the past. Father, he does not seek fights or quarrel with us. Even though our forces are powerful, our task would be a difficult one.
Father, look at the sky, where millions of perfect bodhisattvas with jewels on top of their heads respectfully wait on their limbs. These sources of wealth are adorned with flower garlands. They possess the 10 powers and have come here to venerate him. Everything animate, and even the inanimate too, trees, mountains, gods, yaksas, and garudas, all bow down to that mountain of qualities. Father, it would be better to leave him alone today. Moreover, one will not cross where one cannot reach the end. One will not dig where one cannot pull out the root. One cannot make him angry or even make him suffer with forbearance. One can do nothing that would make him unhappy. So here we'll pause and have a little bit of discussion. This is pretty provocative, to say the least. And for the Bodhisattva to be able to withstand this, to forbear this, is amazing, isn't it? Bernie, what are your comments on this?
Well, this is an elaboration of the story we all know. First, there was fear as a temptation for the Buddha, and then a desire, and he was unmoved by either. So it's just really an elaboration of that. We talk about a very detailed description of the way these I guess you would call them goddesses, tried to seduce him. And he replied that all these things, though on their surface they seem alluring, when one thinks about them in another way, they are not so alluring as they usually seem. They are really the body, instead of being as attractive as it appears, is just filled with icky stuff, just to put it like that. And so it's not attractive as it seems at all. And the fruits of desire, first of all, is a impediment, because it distracts us from the practice of meditation or the practice of religion, and keeps us from realizing what is much more, what is genuinely the source of happiness, which is enlightenment. And that's generally what the text says. I don't know that there's anything deeper in it than that.
Thank you. Ganga, what's your comment on this section?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting that he had to deal with the desires of physical lust again. It seemed like he already dealt with that before he left the palace. He was experiencing all those things. The daughters of Mara weren't really offering anything new to him. It sounded like from his life in the palace that he has already had all those offerings to him, and had already decided that wasn't what he needed, something more than that. So it's sort of like a revisiting of that. I think about the scene where he decides to leave, and all the girls are strewn about, looking like corpses, or in disarray, looking ugly. Then he kind of revisits that in a more deeper way when he starts talking about the body as a stomach being filled with urine and feces, and just about those different, like Bernie was saying, the body under the skin, how that's revulsive. I think that's there's a lot of teachings in Buddhism to overcome desire by imagining the body as a corpse, or imagining what's going on under the skin, as a way for the monks to help overcome desire. That's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, were you listening? Do you have a comment about this section?
Oh, yes, that was a very fascinating listen today. Yes, I agree with Tonga and Bernie, and I had the same thoughts as they just elaborated that Bodhisattva was like prepared by then, was prepared, and it was just a test of his resolve, basically. He already resolved not to entertain any kind of illusions, any kind of like temporary distractions that bring him away from the main goal, which is to understand the nature of suffering and find a path towards liberation from that suffering. But what kind of I didn't expect to hear, because it's usually not mentioned in the normal, common stories of Buddha's path that we read or hear, is that interestingly, like the text emphasizes that neither he had attraction nor he had aversion to the presence of these ladies. He was like totally equanimous to them. Like he didn't show any irritation. He didn't show any frustration that they keep bothering him. It's like for him, it was like, okay, if you're here, I'm happy. If you leave, I'm just as happy, so he was not entertained by them either. So that kind of displays that stability of mind that he developed by then. So not just that he was not attracted to them, but any other kind of potential sway of emotions or thought was not in his realm anymore. He was totally centered, totally refocused, and it didn't show in his voice, in his posture, in his action. That was kind of my additional takeaway from this story.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about the state of mind of the Bodhisattva to be able to do this, So, everybody here has just spoken, about the events that led up to this, that what he experienced in the palace and so on, that he had been through all the dynamics of desire and jealousy and so on. So he was sort of, he was quite prepared for all this, in other words. So his state of mind, was on liberation for all sentient beings, not just for himself, because he had already attained that liberation. But he was focused on his ability to be able to communicate that, to radiate that, so that all beings could become luminous and being able to recognize how they've been seduced, in their lives, in their ways, by their mirrors and so on. So I think it's to be able to see that, I think, is really fascinating to me. To recognize his purpose, what he was here for, what he was born for, and so on, and to see that. It's like it's superhuman in a way, because other beings, would be so easily seduced by the humanity of this, getting into the pleasures of the flesh and so on like that. It's so seductive, it's so intoxicating, but his purpose was greater than that. And here he was still a young man. I mean, he was in his mid-30s. And so, there's still a lot of potential there for this kind of sexual enticement and so on. But he was able to maintain his equipoise throughout all of this. His resolve was so firm that the eightfold path was so strong within him that he was able to withstand this. So this to me is amazing and wonderful. And I can say that in my own personal experience, and if you would all like to speak about whatever personal experiences you've had, I think it's a good, healthy thing to do. But when I was in my most intense times, when I was 20 years, not 20, but in my 20s and in my 30s and so on, when I was in my most intense time and going through the changes, that I experienced like this, the liberation and so on, I totally experienced this looking at the sexual objects as being repulsive. As crazy as that sounds to me now, but I did, because I was totally in a different state of mind, and I was able to hold that, and it was my state of mind. Now, slowly, it began to fade, the intensity of that, but yet the morality of it, or the conscience of it, has stayed with me. So I still my head can be turned, so to speak, but very quickly I can recognize, what it is that is turning my head, why it is that is turning my head, and what I need to do to reestablish my equipoise. And I'm able to do that. So I think that's an interesting thing that I've experienced. Bernie, you have any comment on that? Have you experienced anything like that? What do you think about that?
I really don't want to talk about my personal sexual life or anything like that. I'd rather leave that undiscussed right here. I mean, obviously, we all struggle with sexual desire, and when it's appropriate to use it, and when it's not appropriate to use it. And I just try to keep the 5 precepts, and I think that's enough. For me, I'm certainly no superhuman being. So that's all I can say about that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Ganga?
I think for me, recognizing the transitory nature of pleasure and the commitment I have to the long-term relationships that I have is more of a that helps me to maintain my desires in check, rather than imagining people as being walking around as big bags of blood, muscle, and guts. I think just the recognition of causes and conditions, and if I find someone attractive, it's just attractive based on temporary causes and conditions, and that that attraction is just a transitory in nature, and the attraction I have in my personal relationships with my spouse run far deeper than that. So just I think that helps me maintain my discipline more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, that's I caught myself thinking that maybe for me as a scientist, thinking about intestine and kidneys and bladders and all that, that's actually fascinating. how body mechanics works and how everything is composed. I'm just saying that depending where you're coming from, you may get a very different perspective, and you may want have additional kind of reasons, deep reasons, besides just some kind of, again, illusory repulsiveness of things like blood and pus and meat, whatever, bones, skeletons and stuff like that. I'm just trying to echo what Kunga's saying, is that the should be, I think there should be more like deeper reasoning than just surface repulsiveness that sometimes we notice about physical body and stuff like that, and what hides underneath the shiny or pretty skin and rosy cheeks and all that. But I also want to say, another thing I wanted to point out is the text kind of mentions that, hey, this is all natural. In spring, it's natural to feel love, to feel attraction, to procreate, trees do that, birds do that, animals do that. Why humans don't do that? Why is it bad for humans to do that? So, and the point, of course, is okay. That's all true. And so, Buddha was not arguing anything against that, and he was not resenting any of that. He was not trying to, make counter argument against that. He said, if you like do too much of that, or when it's not really necessary or appropriate, when there is no real reason to do that, then it's just a distraction, right? And so that's another point I wanted to make, that it is natural. There is nothing bad about it, but there is still reasons why not to do this. Most of the time during our lifetime, I would say. And another new thing that I heard in this story is that this Mara's daughters, they didn't just come, to Mara and said that they failed and they're frustrated and like he is this or that. They actually came and told him. They were trying to persuade Mara not to go with any further action. They themselves got convinced that doesn't make sense to fool around with Buddha's mind anymore. So I find it striking that he not only kept his own equipoise firm and resolved, non-distracted, but the Mara's daughters, and which of course should think of it kind of allegorically. Maybe we can think of it as some kind of corners of our sexual mind, corners of our own brain, that they come back to our ego and try to persuade ego that, hey, let's just not play this game. This game is not going to work anymore, and I'm interested to hear what next Mara would do, what our ego would be trying next, another trick to kind of establish his own dominance, which is appears as Mara character in the story. I don't know. What do you think of this?
Well, very good. Yes, I think you made some very good points, observations there, and that there is a time for all things. Not everybody is going to be ready for liberation, for enlightenment. They're on some path, but they haven't come to any kind of realization about what that path is. But it's very natural for them to be an ordinary human being, but to allow themselves to be open, just as the Mara's daughters were open. Hey, there's something beyond our pleasure seeking, and the Bodhisattva is representing that, is bringing that to us. And there's something to this. We're the ones that are missing the story here, not the Bodhisattva. The demons the Maras are missing what he is bringing. So I think there's that. I think it's so to be a human being is not necessarily punishment. To do this and to raise a family and everything is not something that is destined to be punishment or something like that. They're stepping stones. And even when we attain enlightenment, whatever degree we can, at whatever age we can, we bring it back to being an ordinary human being who has been liberated by some degree. And then we assimilate that into our society, into our family, into our group, into our sphere of influence, and so on. And this is what we do. This is the actualization of the Dharma practice, of being able to be an agent for the Dharma, to be able to characterize that for other beings and so on. I'd also like to make a distinction, because somewhere along the line we talked about Mara's daughters, and Mara's daughters are separate, are not, they're demons, that's within ourselves, within our minds, and so on, and but not to be confused with the goddesses. Later on in chapter 22 and chapter 23, we go into more about the gods and the goddesses. So it's important for us to, keep an open mind and not get ahead of ourselves by calling out these different characters, these different beings in this play in full, as being characters of something else that comes later in the story. We don't know that until we do it, but I'm just pointing out that there is a difference between Mara's daughters and the goddesses. So we'll see what that is in a few weeks. Anybody else got any points that you'd like to bring up, based on what Alex or Kunga or Bernie has said? Okay. All right. Well, then we go on to the next group here, which is the seventh recitation. I've broken this chapter down in actually 10 groups. So now we move to the seventh one so that we can talk about, relative issues on each one of these sections. So we're on 21.175. So I'll continue reading this page, and then Bernie and then Kunga will continue. Monks, at the point that the 8 goddesses dwelling in the tree of awakening, Shri, Verdi, Tapa, Sayasi, Vidu, Ojobala, Satyavadini, and Samangini honored the Bodhisattva, glorified him, evoking the 16 types of pleasure, or the 16 types of splendor, and praised him. Sacred One, you are beautiful, like the moon during the bright fortnight. With your pure mind, you are radiant, like the sun at dawn. Pure being, you have bloomed like a lotus in a pond. Pure being, you roar like a lion with a mane moving in the jungle. Supreme being, you shine forth like the king of mountains in the middle of the ocean. Pure being, you are elevated like the ring of surrounding mountains. Supreme being, you are hard to fathom, like the ocean rich in jewels. Protector of the world, your mind is vast, like the unlimited sky. Pure being, your mind is firm, like the earth, you sustain all beings. Supreme being, your mind is never turbid, like the lake Anavatapa, it is always calm.
Supreme Being, your mind is without a fixed abode. Like wind, it never lingers anywhere in the world. Supreme Being, you are as hard to meet with, like the King of Brightness. You are free from all conceit. Sacred One, you are very powerful. Like Narayana, you are hard to tame. Protector of the world, your resolve is firm. You will not move from the seat of awakening. Like a lightning bolt released from the hand of Indra, Supreme Being, you cannot be turned back. Supreme Being, you will attain your aim in full. Soon you will be endowed with the complete 10 powers. Monks, in this way, the goddesses and the Bodhi tree glorified the Bodhisattva's awakening, evoking the 16 types of magnificence. Monks, at that moment, the gods of the pure realms tried to discourage Mara in 16 different ways. What were these 16? They were, Evil One, you are lost. You are brooding like an old crane. Evil One, you are powerless, like an old elephant sinking in a swamp. Evil One, you are on your own, like a loser pretending to be a hero. Evil One, you have no one with you, like someone suffering from contagious disease, abandoned in a forest. Evil One, you are weak, like a young bull pained by a heavy load. Evil Being, you are thrown on your back, like a tree tossed about by the wind. Evil One, you are on the wrong path, like a traveler who has lost his way. Evil One, you are the lowest of the low, like a poor man who the gods who gets envious. Evil One, you are garrulous, like an impudent crow. Evil One, you are overcome with pride, like an ungrateful ruffian.
Evil One, today you will flee, like a jackal at the sound of a lion's roar. Evil One, today you will be scattered about, like a bird tossed around by the roaring wind. Evil One, not knowing when the time is right, you are like a beggar whose merit has run out. Evil One, today you will be abandoned, like a broken pot full of dust. Evil One, today you will be restrained by the Bodhisattva, like a snake by a spell. Evil One, you are completely powerless, like Urunda, who lost his arms and legs.
All right, so
Monk
please
and-
hold it there. Please hold it there, and let's go back and talk about this section, because the next section comes up. But a lot was actually said here, because here we've been introduced to the goddesses who are praising the Bodhisattva, and then and the gods of the pure realms are berating Mara. So I think it's interesting to talk now about the difference between the gods and the goddesses and Mara and the daughters of Mara, the sons of Mara, and so on like that. So How would you define the gods and the goddesses? Bernie, you have a
You mean in what are gods and goddesses in
yeah,
terms of Buddhist cosmology? Well,
yeah,
generally, they're considered beings who are born apparitionally. That is not usually not born of a mother, but just they appear in the God realm, and they do not have bodies, fleshly bodies, as uh, we normally think, but they can appear to humans, and they generally have very long lifetimes, and uh, their lives are pleasurable, except for the final moments when they realize that they're final days when they realize that they're going to die. And that's how they're generally described. And there are many different levels of gods. There are gods of the form realm, there are gods of the desire realm, gods of the form realm, and gods of the formless realm. So there are all sorts of different heavens in Buddhism, and each higher than the other. And they uh, are each level of heaven is further away from the usual concerns of the world. And usually in the God realms, we have several different levels. So on the one level, there is the heaven of the 33, which is ruled over by Indra. And Indra is sort of like Jupiter in Roman mythology, in that he is sort of like the ruler of the world, the most powerful being. But above Indra, then we have Brahma. Brahma is sort of like the creator god, if you could have one in Hinduism, that who really brings the world into existence for each period the world comes into existence. And above even Brahma, we have the formless realms, which are meditative beings, which are in a sort of formless absorption for extremely long period of time until their karma is exhausted and they fall back to the lower realms.
Gunga, you have any comment? What do you think about the gods and the goddesses?
Um, I think of them as ways to talk about different elements within the psyche. I mean, I don't really have a lot of thought about gods and goddesses existing outside my conceptions of them. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you too, Bernie, by the way. Alex, what's your comment on the gods and the goddesses?
Um, I, well, when listening to this chapter, I sort of get a little realization that among gods and goddesses, you know, just like in Western tradition, we have gods that we write with the capital letter God, and gods that we write with the small letters, which are all our Roman gods or Greek gods and all that. So, and those are, of course, basically representation of facets of our consciousness and psyche and all that. And it's interesting here, so that in this chapter they talk about specific gods and goddesses, or maybe just goddesses, that live in that tree. And I think it's not coincidental that they chose a tree, as their dwelling place. And I think the allegory here is that tree is our own sort of, if you can say, mind, our own brain, but the kind of higher refined manifestation of that mind. And you know, like, our brain is really like a tree, you know. It has a trunk, it has like two big branches, which is our hemispheres, and in each of that, the neuronal get branched here and there, and neuronal pathways. And our brain is really a tree, if you anatomically think about it. And each neuron is a tree. So I think that story points to kind of reminds us that there is a higher, besides lower consciousness, which are the daughters of Mara. There is also a higher consciousness, higher ego that in us, and that ego, well, all those qualities, they kind of like they can also they remind ourselves, what do we gain from practices that Bodhisattva engaged on. So what kind of okay, we didn't get the pleasures. We rejected, well, Bodhisattva rejected the pleasures of, you know, daughters that were offered, Mara daughters that were offering to him. But what did he gain? You know, so here we get some glimpse of different qualities that he gained by staying focused and staying on the path. And in this case, I see that this is just our own like higher aspects, higher faculties of our mind or our consciousness and such. And then it talks about you know, what happened to our ego that fell to the side, and our ego was crushed and unneeded and destroyed and miserable, and not really needed, nothing to pay attention or discarded, unusable. What do we need it for? Once you overcome that ego, there is no reason to go back and look at it and examine it or chop the pieces and try to put something out of it. That's what comes to my mind.
Very good, thank you. So the gods and the goddesses, what I've been able to make of all this is the gods and the goddesses are of the world. They're worldly beings. You know, they're human beings. You know, it's humans are the causes of, you know, the next life. You know, in the Bardo Todal, we talk about that. And in the Bardo Todal, we go through this sequence where the female egg and the male sperm come together, but then here comes this spiritual, you know, being, if you will, that the three of them then become what is to become a living being. And how that is determined is largely through the karma of that spiritual being, how it is to be born, how it is to live a life, you know, and what the causes and conditions of that being is to be. Now, there's still a lot of other things that happen and so on. So it's not like it's all just automatically imprinted or something like that, but there are causes and conditions that come along with this. So in the Bardo Todal, it's said that we determined, you know, what realm, you know, hell realms, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, God realm, and so on like that. But even more than that, we go into the four continents of Meru when we talk about Mount Meru. So this is, we'll talk about this a little bit more. I'll send you the paperwork and we can talk about this. But the point is that we're born into Zembupipa. This is the continent in which we're born. There's other continents that we can be born into. In Zembupipa, we've got these 6 different human realms, and the God realms are part of that. The God realms can be thought of in terms of the goddesses of the firmament, of the physicality of it, the metaphysics of how all this is coming together, in a what we might call a scientific way. But then there is the actors of that, the actors of the spirit, the actors of how would I say, the nebulous or something like that is not the firmament, but it is the motion of that energy, are the gods. So this is all broken down in the 17 God realms, and Bernie said, the desire realms and the form realms, the formless realms, and so on, is broken down in that and so on. So this is giving us an opportunity to be able to understand this tree of awakening. That's what Alex was referring to, this tree of awakening, that there's this metaphor, there's this analogy that we can look at to really try and understand, we've chosen to be human beings, but yet we still have godlike tendencies. We're very fortunate beings, other people, other beings who are stuck in God realms, who are stuck in hell realms, or in animal realms, other human beings around this world would think of us as being like gods because of the luxuries that we have and the things that we're able to do that to them is completely unobtainable. So they would refer to us like that. So we're very fortunate beings, and we could see ourselves as being on these different desire God realms. We can see ourselves being in the form God realms and the formless God realms in the way that we're behaving and thinking and so on. So all this, at some point begins to come together. We begin to see this. And here we're seeing, how this happens. This is the play in full. That's the power of this sutra, I think, why it's so wonderful, because it's introducing us to these things that beforehand I myself hadn't been introduced to. I'm not that well read, but people like Bernie and so on, scholars and so on, have looked into these things. This really draws it all together. So we're being introduced to this. So the definitions, if we look into the glossary, like if you look at, the pure realms, what are the pure realms? Well, there's a listing for that in glossary 476. So what I did was I put together all these different glossary entries into a sequential order so we can see how this tree of awakening, what the metaphysics, what the commonality to all this is. So it's very fascinating. It's very interesting. So so we just went through the 16 types of splendor, and then let me see here. Yeah, we just went through the 16 types of splendor and the 16 types of magnificent. So the splendor was articulated by the goddesses, and the gods then spoke about the magnificence. So we can look at this particular section from 175 to where we left off to the end of 191, we can see the goddess's point of view, and we can see the god's point of view. And to be able to take it apart, put it back together again, is really a great exercise. So I made myself one note here that I think is interesting. It says, all these years, all this renunciation, all this devotion, this is the play of the imagination as human beings. All this is a play of imagination, that, we don't know, what it is, but we're creating this play. We're creating this story, this narrative of what it is. And the gods, the goddesses, all this is all part of the play. And that which is beyond our being able to articulate is that we aspire to, is that of our true nature, that Buddha nature that we talk about, the God, the Christ, whatever you want to call it, So the gods have an affinity for that, but yet they are not that. Because the Bodhisattva is the pathway to the Buddha. The God realms is not the pathway. It's the Bodhisattva pathway that is. So it's interesting to see that, to think about that. Any comments or questions?
Well, I think what you're saying, I totally agree. We just should keep it in perspective, and just like in animal world, there are different levels of life. Some say even crystals or minerals is a very low level form of life. And then there are like maybe some bacteria and insects, and then, higher animals and apes and all that. So just like that, in God's realm, there is not only one kind of God. There are many different layers and realms and sub-layers of God, and I guess here they talk about a particular one that deals with our own human consciousness, those that govern and kind of like the natural laws that guide the evolution, so to speak, or prepare, or been designed by the Creator to act a certain way through our own psyche evolution and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's, it's mentioned several times. We've read it, where it talks about the animate and the inanimate. So the inanimate is that which isn't born and so on like that, but yet it's energy that's all vibrating, but it's in a solid form. It has some kind of a form to it and so on. But there's what you were just saying. There's something that we might call life in that. There's a consciousness in that. There's a physics. There's a reality in that, or something. And it's our being able to transcend our humanness, our human nature that blocks us from being able to recognize that in the inanimate as well as the animate.
Yes, and we can also evoke this notion of quantum form, that each atom you can view each atom as a live and unpredictable little form that you can never 100% predict what it's going to do, what kind of state it's going to be, where it's going to move. due to uncertainty principle, what energy it will have, where its elementary particles will turn around here and there, and all kind of influences it may be under that come and go. So yeah, there is physical, that's something we can see and sort of try to map out and predict, and there is this mysterious uncertainty of what can happen just out of the blue, you know.
Well, I got to ask the question: are we mapping out reality, or are we mapping out our imagination? Or is the reality our imagination?
And I think imagination is part of the reality, so to speak. Like the unpredictability of things is part of the reality. Like we can sort of predict certain things, you know, for maybe some finite period of time, and they will be probably just as we anticipate them. But there is also something that we're never able to predict, some subtle things, or sometimes even big things. Like think about who was anticipating this developments in Syria. Like we didn't know. We didn't know there's going to be a whole regime change, but it happened, you know. Of course, maybe some
Well,
people.
sure, we could predict it. We could predict it. We could predict it. Maybe not in the finite, but in the infinite. That all these things, you know, this is the, you know, the world of change. You know, this is stuff that happens when we start thinking that things are permanent. Syria is always going to be what it's been the past 50 years. That's, you know, we're seeing it in our own country. Whoever thought 15 years ago that we'd be in the situation that we are now, politically speaking? Whoever would imagine that? You know?
Right. This is creative force of life, you know, acting on our physical world. Some people were able to predict, some not. Those who are able to predict, they may not be able to predict something else.
Yeah.
It's a constant amazement of what can happen.
So, all right, well, let's carry on this next part if we can, unless somebody's got something you want to add to this, you want to say. Okay. I hope you're finding this interesting. You know, okay. So what we just read was the 7th recitation. So now, Kunga, would you continue reading at 21.192? And it just goes for the rest of this page and then half of the next page. And then we'll have a little bit more of a discussion. So, Kunga, please continue.
Monks, in these 16 ways, the god from the pure realms tried to discourage Mara. And monks, the gods who attended upon the Bodhisattva, now also tried to break Mara's resolve in 16 ways. What were these 16? They were: Evil one, today you will be defeated by the Bodhisattva, like an enemy soldier by a hero. Evil one, today you will be held down by the Bodhisattva, like a weak wrestler by a powerful one. Evil one, today you'll be outmatched by the Bodhisattva, like a firefly by the sun. Evil one, today you'll be scattered by the Bodhisattva, like a handful of chaff by a strong wind. Evil one, today you will be terrified by the Bodhisattva, like a jackal by a lion. Evil one, today you will be felled by the Bodhisattva, like a great sal tree whose roots have been cut. Evil one, today you'll be destroyed by the Bodhisattva, like a hostile city by a great king. Evil one, today you'll be dried up by the Bodhisattva, like a water-filled footprint of a cow. Evil one, today you will flee from the Bodhisattva, like a criminal escaping execution. Evil one, today you will be swirling by the Bodhisattva, like a swarm of bees by the heat of fire. Evil one, today
Bernie's next.
Okay.
Evil one, today you will be hurt by the Bodhisattva, like a lawful king who has lost his kingdom. Evil one, today you will be you will brood because of the Bodhisattva, like an old crane with clipped wings. Evil one, today you will be deprived of livelihood by the Bodhisattva, like a weary traveler without provisions in a wilderness. Evil one, today you will be weeping because of the Bodhisattva, like someone shipwrecked at sea. Evil one, today you will be depleted of the life force by the Bodhisattva, like grass and trees by fire at the end of an eon. Evil one, today you will be crushed by the Bodhisattva, like a mountaintop by a mighty thunderbolt.
All right, so let's stop right there, please. So here we're seeing we're seeing the faults of the evil one who is being defeated by the Bodhisattva. And the Bodhisattva, even in 21.200, they say, evil one, today you will be depleted of the life force by the Bodhisattva. Depleted of the life force by the Bodhisattva. Now that's a summation of all these other things. These other things that led up to this were more kind of finite, worldly objects and so on. But now we're talking about the life force. And the Bodhisattva is beyond that. So, as I said before with the Bardo Todal, when we talk about the female egg and the male sperm coming together, but then here comes that karmic being, that life force that then comes, and then we have that life force within ourselves for our entire lives. It's running up and down our center channel and going out, through the different channels and the drops and the winds and all this stuff that we talk about and everything. All that is they're just designations to try and understand, something that is not understandable until we have that transcendent experience. And having that transcendent experience means that we don't necessarily have to be able to explain it, because we return as human beings. And the Buddha said, I can't explain it. I can only teach you how I got there, but then we accept it. And that becomes the freedom. In that lies the freedom, the liberation. To not have to know these finite answers. For every answer, for every question that we make, we've got more questions. For every answer that we solve, there's more questions. That's the right way to say it. So it's coming to the equipoise of that. That's what I think is being demonstrated here by the Bodhisattva. Bernie, what do you think about that?
Geez, I don't know. Basically, do you want me to comment on what you just said? I don't know that I really can say much about that. Generally, what we're talking about here is the Mara has been defeated because fear, all the typical emotions that control us don't control the Bodhisattva. And this is just a summary of different analogies for what it means to be defeated. There's nothing particularly...
Well, what is it that the Bodhisattva has? What is it that the Bodhisattva represents that allows them to be able to do that?
It's more helpful to think about enlightenment as subtraction rather than addition, because what gets subtracted is our mistaken views. And it's because it's okay. It's like a mirror that's covered with grime and or a piece of metal that can serve as a mirror that's been corroded, and one cleans it and maybe not just cleans it, but scours it first. And then after you scour it, you clean it. And then after you clean it, you wash it. And then you can finally see your reflection. So enlightenment or the Bodhisattva's good qualities is really not so much a question of adding qualities, although at a certain level that is true. What's happening is that he's subtracted the coverings, the what they call the veils of ignorance, which covers our innate wisdom. So, I mean, that's how I see it.
Okay. Gongo, what would you like to say about that?
Oh, well, when Bernie was talking about the mirror, it made me think of the story of the sixth patriarch in Zen. The sixth patriarch was older and needed a monk to take over his abbotness of the monastery. So he said the monk who could write a poem on the wall, that demonstrated his realization would be the monk that would be accepted to take over as the abbot. So the monk that everyone thought should take over as the abbot wrote a poem about a mirror, very much like Bernie was describing. Enlightenment was like a mirror covered in dust, and you should scrape away the dust, clear the dust off, and then your wisdom would be reflected or exposed or allowed to shine forth. But the cook who was also a Buddhist practitioner but illiterate had someone else read him that poem, and then he transcribed a new poem which says there is no mirror, there is no clearing. Enlightenment has always existed. Where could it have been shined, allowed? What are you doing? Basically, something like that. And the abbot said that was the enlightened being, but I think his name was Hui Nung. I'm not positive on that. Had to flee because the other monks wanted to kill him because he was an illiterate cook, and they didn't think he should be running the monastery. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Thank you. I didn't know about this story. This is interesting. I mean, when we talk about mirror and grime, it just we're using a relative language to point out to the absolute. So I don't think it's bad. We just need to recognize that. Yes. What I wanted to say is as Lance rightly pointed out, and thank you, Lance, for actually emphasizing that, because I didn't quite realize it until you mentioned that not only like by the path of the Bodhisattva, not only the ego get crushed and destroyed and like scattered and dried up, but it also gets cut off its life force. So if you follow the right path, there is no chance for ego to come back to arise, because you would destroy any reasons, any causes for ego to come back to life. And that seems to me is the Maha Nirvana that we want to all achieve, so we don't come back to the cycle of existence.
The cycle of what?
The cycle of existence, to samsara.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that word.
To samsara.
Existence, the cycle of existence.
All right, excuse me. I couldn't hear it. The cycle, yes.
So basically, this emphasizes that following the right path will not only remove that grime and make the mirror shining, it will create such situation that the grime will never reappear again. This is indestructible diamond that is in the lore of Vajrayana, something that cannot be longer destroyed, that pure state of mind. That's all I think I have to say for that.
Thank you very much. So yeah, so I agree. You know, if we can say that the ineffable, the inexpressible, the absolute, whatever term we can use about it, but then trying to you know, give a to give a description of it, or to give an imputation of what it is, you know, just by doing that, you know, we're kind of we're defeating ourselves, you know, by saying, oh well, here's an example of the ineffable, of the absolute. I think, you know, we get ourselves into some kind of a, you know, a circle that can't be broken or something like that. I don't know if that's a right analogy either. I think that with this, I think with it's important to get back to the very, very, very basics, because we're looking at this as human beings. And we're looking at this as human beings who abide within the six realms of being a human being. And the whole point of being in these six realms is to be able to identify what it is that is causing us to be in these realms, in these six human realms. So getting to the God realm, because here we're contrasting everything here with gods. What is the fault of being a god? What is the fault of being able to be in this mindset of being of thinking that we can know? What is the fault of being a god?
Well, generally it's said that the root defilement of the God realm is pride.
Right.
And
But again, what kind of God? The God with the capital letter?
All
Or
the
God with
gods, all the gods. And that's the benefit of going through this and having, you know, already gone through, you know, chapter 22, and now, you know, kind of bringing it back. So that's the point, is being able to see that all these God realms and everything are all caused by pride. And it's the path of the Bodhisattva that is cutting through that, cutting through and crossing over.
Yeah, and it's really easy for Bodhisattva with a big capital B, because he already was a god many times, and he was like one of the best gods out there. But
Well, so the story goes.
yeah, but I think it just brings in perspective that no matter where, you know, are we in God's realm, or God's in human realm, or human in God's realm, it doesn't matter, or human in human realm. There is a potential for enlightenment there. We just have to find a way to see it. So I'm sort of losing the track where we're going with that.
Where we're going with what?
Like, all right, I think I lost the track of your train of your thoughts. So Bodhisattva was dealing with ego. There is God. Um,
Well, this particular
praising.
section here is kind of like an observation that is being said by the gods themselves. These are the who just recited these 16 ways to break Mara's resolve. What we just read from 192 to dot 200 is the gods speaking to the demon, to Mara, saying, this is what I see. This is why you are lost. This is why you're caught up in your fabrication. The God speaking to them. So in this way, the gods do have a degree of enlightenment to them. It's not the same as the Bodhisattva, but it definitely is greater. Their degree of liberation, their degree of observation, be able to see, is better than the Maras, because the Maras are completely deluded, as they are hateful, as they are jealous, as they are desirous, and so on like that. So, I guess it begs the question, where is this conversation taking place? Is it taking place within the Bodhisattva?
I mean, was this just an imaginary thing
Of
in his
course,
own mind?
yeah.
Well, it's presented as if it's external enemy. Presumably, what actually happened at the Bodhi tree is that he was reviewing all these thoughts and desires as he was about to enter the meditation, and these are the things that he was reviewing and rejecting as being lower and imperfect views while he was sitting down in meditation, rather than their visualized as exterior forces here. At least that's the way we would normally think of it in modern terms.
Yeah, so he's still sitting on the seat of awakening. He hasn't gotten
Right.
up from the seat of awakening yet.
Yeah, it looks like this is like self-reflection processes that happen in, well, we can say it happens in Bodhisattva's mind or consciousness, but we can also say that there are these gods that surround him. But in absolute reality, there is no separation between any of us and any of those gods in the whole universe. We are all connected, and we are all part of that.
Right.
So it's kind of like reflecting in the ultimate sense. It's basically reflecting on his own or our own nature when we once we like destroy the ego, and then we realize, there are these splendid qualities that we now come to have and behold and possess, and this is great. This is that what naturally comes when you go, advance on this path. And he's just bringing that into awareness as he is sitting on this seat.
So do you all agree that we are Buddha, and that to be Buddha, we need to go through the stages of Bodhisattva. Now, we are not perfected Buddha. We are not fully realized Buddha. We're not, fully realized Bodhisattva, but we're on that path. And here, we're seeing, what Gautama went through to get to that point. And the point is for us to be able to allow ourselves the permission to go through these kinds of explorations and investigations of our imagination and so on, to write our own story if we choose to do that, or to be able to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense. This guy's way smarter than I am, and I can use this story and see that we share this, because the animate and the inanimate are all interconnected anyway. Isn't that the sense of reality that at this point, we can come away with? We can say, yeah, there's some kind of profound wisdom here.
Yeah, I don't find that I can disagree with that. That kind of makes sense. I don't know if Kunga or Bernie has any other insight here.
Bernie, Kunga, you have anything you'd like to add to that? Or
Insights into what
well, just
that
what
we're all primordially Buddhas, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, is there? Yeah, that's how it's.
Well, the general idea is that Buddha nature is there. God, okay, I'm not going to be able to give a good explanation of Buddha nature tonight because it's kind of late for me and I'm kind of tired. But Buddha nature is inherent, but it's inherent. You got to understand when we talk about Buddha nature, there's three levels. First, the level is the level of the Hinayana, which teaches everything is impermanent and composite. Okay. The second level is emptiness. That emptiness develops out of that because things are composite and impermanent. They only exist as conventions, and therefore they are empty. And Buddha nature develops out of emptiness because all phenomena are empty. Everything is equal and the same because everything has the same nature, which is emptiness. And it's that equality, it's of all phenomena that Buddha nature comes out of because there's no essential difference between enlightened Buddha and an ordinary sentient being. Therefore, the ordinary sentient being is in their true nature no different than the Buddha. So you got to understand that you can't have Buddha nature without understanding emptiness first. And you can't have emptiness without understanding impermanence and the composite nature of all phenomena. So we can't treat Buddha nature as if it's some silvery, shiny orb somewhere within our heart, because that gives a false view, an eternalist view of what Buddha nature really is. So I guess that's my comment on all this.
Thank you. I think that's quite insightful. Yes, I think that's good to point out.
Kunga, you have a comment?
I think that's a good point. I think we talk about Buddha nature as if it's something permanent and unchanging and separate, right? It's easy to talk about it that way, but it's good to be reminded that just like everything else, it's dependent on everything else. There's this interconnectedness, interdependence, that wouldn't be, something that Buddha nature would not be a part of. We have lots of different ways about talking about the path and the goals of the path, but I think the one thing that strikes me the most is the path is the goal. And just by reading these texts, reading about the experience, is recreating the experience. And of course, it's recreating it in our mind. Where else could it be happening at? Doesn't really matter, if it's how factual or mythological or exaggerated. It's still an experience in our mind, and it's just the appreciation of the experience. The appreciation of the experience in the present moment is really, I think, what we're striving for, to have an experience that is not covered up by our desires, to have an experience of a certain type, our aversion to having an experience of a certain type, or our boredom of not being desiring or being asserted or put off enough by an experience to pay attention to it. Trying to just maintain attention and reception to all experiences regardless. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the God path was the Hinayana path. And it wasn't until later that the Mahayana began to be accepted and taken up, the Bodhisattva path. But initially, it was the path of the Arhat that was the hero of liberation, of enlightenment, and so on. But then, after some time, then it became the Bodhisattva. So there's still, the Hinayana school, and there's still the Mahayana school, the way of looking at this and everything. But, for our purpose now to look at it in a total way and be able to bring it together, whether we can call it early Buddhism or contemporary Buddhism or something like that, but they both spoke, that within ourselves, all this display is taking place, and so on. And so just to put it into that perspective, that in the formless realm was the formless realm of the Arhat. The formless realm of the gods was the Arhat. In the Bhumis is the going through the stages of purification of the Bodhisattva to become Buddha. Did the Arhat realize that he was alone in his liberation, and therefore it blocked, his ego came up, that he was ready for enlightenment, and it was the Bodhisattva who said, oh no, I can't become enlightened until all other beings are enlightened. So that's something we can talk about next time.
Yes, that's another essential part of the story. Yeah, because that was his main goal, not to liberate himself, but find liberation for all the living sentient beings.
Yeah, it's great stuff. This Lalitavistara is just magnificent. All right, so we'll pick this back up next time, and thank you all very much for your comments, and it's really good stuff. Okay. Any other comments? I don't want to cut anybody off. Anybody else have a
Totally agree. I had a blast today. Not because of the Mara's daughter, but because of the other chapters that we went into and discussed.
Okay. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. May the teachings of the great Trikumpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara, and all the other great masters. Thank you all very much. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you, gentlemen. See you next week.
Okay, bye.